News, events, sports. Same time, same place, right in the heart of Isla Vista. UCSB TV is serving UC Santa Barbara and the surrounding community with real journalism.
Good evening and welcome back to UCSB TV, the university's only broadcast news station, bringing you all of the sports, news, and events you need to know in and around Santa Barbara. I'm Rebecca Hurtado, Fairweather.
And I'm Pricila, Flores. I am so excited to be in here with you tonight, Becca. Here are our top stories tonight. First, Super Tuesday ended with Donald Trump and Joe Biden being frontrunners in the primaries for president. Nikki Haley dropped March 6th out of the presidential race after only winning the state of Vermont, NBC reports.
In local elections, the status of AS elections timeline remains uncertain. UCSB AS Elections Board is back up and running according to newly appointed election chair Cesar Castillo. Castillo was appointed as of February 28th, and AS has not had an elections chair since the 2022 to 2023 school year. Castillo says they hope to meet as soon as possible. Declaration of candidacy closes today on Wednesday, March 6th by 11:59 p.m. UCSB TV has not been able to verify if a vice chair was also appointed.
On other local news, the Multicultural Center has officially been closed a full week. This comes a week after student activists posted pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist signage and disapproval of Associate Student Body President Tessa Vexler. Students took to social media over the past week to protest the closure.
UCSB TV will continue to report on this story as more details become available.
Isla Vistans and Deltopia goers, listen up to this. Even though Deltopia is not scheduled until spring quarter, campus officials and authorities are ramping up safety measures.
That's right. The External Vice President for Local Affairs hosted a town hall to discuss Deltopia weekend. On the agenda is a change that will impact the policing of party goers. Jenna McGovern has the story. To you, Jenna.
I'm here at Embarcadero Hall just following a town meeting for Isla Vista locals to engage in a discussion surrounding the upcoming Deltopia weekend in April. UCSB's External Vice President for Local Affairs Office organized the meeting with a panel of 5 speakers, including local law enforcement and UCSB representatives. On the agenda was discussing the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office decision to suspend the restorative justice program for 24 hours starting April 6th. The sheriff's decision means that any citations issued during that period could lead to significant fiscal and criminal justice consequences.
Deltopia is the annual day-long block party on Del Playa Drive that usually takes place the first weekend back after spring break. The day brings masses of both locals and out-of-town visitors and has a history of calamity. The restorative justice program is a voluntary punishment alternative in which individuals take part in a community-focused educational course and are assigned up to 4 hours of community service in Isla Vista. EVPLA's town hall panelists included Chief of UCPD Alex Yao, IV Foot Patrol Lieutenant Garrett Tesla, Chair of the Police Accountability Board and UCSB instructor Jeffrey Raymond, and Director of UCSB's Alcohol and Drug Program Jackie Curda. There were around 20 attendees at the town hall, and participants were able to submit questions prior to the meeting, as well as ask the panelists questions from the floor. Over Deltopia weekend last year, the Sheriff's Office and other local law enforcement agencies issued 151 citations and made 23 arrests. EVPLA's town hall also addressed the amendments to Santa Barbara County ordinances that went into effect last month, which included prohibiting any ticket sales for outdoor gatherings and restricting the size of parties to 250 people maximum. Violation of these ordinances will result in fines, citations, or arrests, according to the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office. I spoke with Isla Vista Foot Patrol Lieutenant Tesla to learn more about the program suspension and his outlook on Deltopia safety.
Got 19 years with the Sheriff's Office. I've been the lieutenant here for just about 2 years, a little under 2 years. I was a sergeant out here, I was a deputy out here, so very familiar with ID. It's an interesting question because as a public safety agency, I have a responsibility and an oath to protect the public. And I can't tell you in my near 20 years of working here how much, I had no idea how much of my time as a patrol deputy, as a sergeant, et cetera, how much of my time was spent saving people from themselves. It's shocking. Really, it's a huge part of the job. And I fear that if we took an approach like that and we just let people do what they want to do, we would see alcohol overdose deaths, not just overdoses, but deaths skyrocket. We'd see fentanyl deaths skyrocket, right? And that's why we do things like distribute Narcan, and we try to teach people those things, because if we just had a laissez-faire approach to enforcement, we would see people legitimately hurt themselves. And we don't want that to happen, right? The other aspect of that is like, yes, they can be adults, but their behavior impacts other people, right? And so someone might just get really intoxicated and have a great time, but then if they're passed out in the street, it creates a butterfly effect of all sorts of other issues. Like I mentioned earlier, like we can't bring fire trucks down the roadway because people are packed into the street. Well, that affects someone who might be having a legitimate medical emergency completely not related to Deltopia. People who are over-consuming and end up in the hospital on alcohol overdose, people from other parts of the county that have a legitimate medical emergency, like they're in childbirth or they're having a heart attack or they had a stroke, are now competing for beds with people who chose to overindulge in an event that's not legal in the first place, right? So there's this huge kind of earthquake effect from something like Deltopia out into the community way beyond north of El Colegio, where people tend to think that this is just a contained event, and it's not. It's not. Last year, we had to pull ambulances from other part of the county, which means that if someone's having an issue in Lompoc, there may not be an ambulance to help them.
Right.
And so there's this huge effect to it if we just kind of let this go. One of the things we looked at trying to do to discourage any participation in the event was suspending restorative justice for the day of Deltopia. And the original idea was to suspend it for the whole weekend. And first thing we did was reach out to associated students and shared with the EVPLA's office that this is something we're considering. And we got their input and their feedback on it. And understandably, they felt differently about it than we did, but we wanted to talk it out with them and make sure that they were engaged in the decision-making process of it. And I assured them that the minute we made a decision, they'd be notified of it. And so with the associate students, we've had probably 3, 4, maybe 5 conversations about this throughout the last couple of months. We've thought this through. We took it from the full weekend down to just the 24-hour period as part of our consideration, and that we don't want people to think, we want this to really be about Deltopia, not the day after, not the day before, but really make this about discouraging activity that Saturday. That, the restorative justice program is intended for people who have been observed committing a low-level offense. Typically, it's open containers in public, open containers of alcohol, and minor in possession. Those are the 2 that are most often referred. Then you might have like noise curfew violations and such like that. So when they come into the restorative justice class, what they have to do is we go through some exercises, some discussions, some topics, and cover local laws, but explain like why it's a bad idea to have noise going after midnight and how that affects your fellow students, but also long-term residents and all the other people in the community that are here. One of the things we realize is that this is, for many people, once you move off campus, this is your first time living in a community by yourself or without that tether to your parents, right? And so they just oftentimes don't know or haven't thought through some of the ramifications of the behavior that they just don't realize it, right? They don't realize why 2 a.m. blasting your music might be a bad idea for your neighbors. They don't realize that being under 21 and walking around with alcohol is probably a bad idea, et cetera, right? And so we get a lot of great discussion that comes out of it, where I think people, that light bulb goes on for a lot of people. And they leave here and we get great reviews from it. I've had people come up to me on the street and talk about it very enthusiastically. So it's not a program we're looking to get rid of in any way, shape, or form, but it is incredibly low-level interventions. Once someone goes through an RJ, they go through the RJ class and it gets wiped clean. It's as if we never contacted them, right? Again, as I said the other night, it's our position that participation in Deltopia is inherently uncooperative and non-compliant with law enforcement, which are the 2 requirements for being eligible for restorative justice, that we felt this was an appropriate move to make for just that one day. And it's really simple to not get in trouble that day. It's super simple. Don't carry open containers of alcohol. Don't carry alcohol if you're underage. Don't host a party that's a paid event or that sells alcohol. And if you're hosting a party, police your attendees to make sure they don't go up on the rooftop or out on the bluffs. If you host a party and there's a DJ, make sure you keep it under 250 people. Right? Those are really the only reasons that someone's going to get a citation that day. Now, the biggest concern, of course, is that when people consume alcohol, then they become drunk to the point that they can't take care of themselves, right? It's a medical event. And so we treat those as medical emergencies first. But That's why things like walking around with an open container of alcohol escalates into drunken public 4 or 5 hours later. And why we are enforcing things like an open container, because at 9 a.m. an open container might prevent a drunken public or a hospital admission at 4 p.m. And so that's the approach that we're taking to it. The thing I always encourage people to do is, you may disagree with the contact, you may disagree with the fact you're getting a citation, but be cooperative. Just let the deputy or the officer do their job. They'll write the citation and you'll have full opportunity to go to court and explain your side of things. But in that moment is not the time to argue, because that's what escalates a contact from potentially a citation to then an arrest for resisting or obstructing or delaying an officer. Don't argue it there in the field. Don't have your friends argue on your behalf in the field. And that's what snowballs our contacts oftentimes. Let the deputy write the citation, you'll deal with it another time, and you can move on with your day.
Right.
Well, I guess the one thing I want to drive home is that we are very aware of the community that we police, right? And that people have had different experiences with law enforcement depending on where they come from. And we want their experience with Isla Vista Foot Patrol to be a positive experience. And we realize also that that's not always going to be a possibility, and that we may make all the best customer service efforts out there and someone is still going to have a bad interaction with us. But we want to create a community that is supportive of each other, and that includes a citizenry who are thoughtful of how their actions affect other people and how they can participate in making IV as great as it can be. And so that's why we always ask for support. We always try to communicate what our goals are, and we try to be understanding of the dynamic of Isla Vista, but at the same time, this is very much an active community. We have long-term residents, we have residents with children who want nothing to do with Deltopia, and based on attendance records, or attendance estimates, probably about half of IV wants nothing to do with this thing.
Wow.
They want to go around their daily lives. They want to be able to go to their parks. They want to be able to take their kids out, and they can't at times because of this event. So we have to balance the needs of both sides, and that's what we're trying to do.
In addition to the town hall, UCSB's Public Safety Commission also organized an educational public event in Isla Vista called Deltopia Preparedness Days.
Yeah, I'm Andrew Gersh. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Commission, which is an associated students BCU. We're just doing some information and education outreach to inform people about the new ordinance changes, as well as other changes like the suspension of the restorative justice program, as well as providing an interface between students and other safety resources like representatives from local agencies, Legal Resource Center, EVPLA, and other groups. And yeah, there will be free pizza, as well as it'll be a distribution point for our Deltopia preparedness care packages, which has been a great project between ourselves and EVPLA. Those will include safety-driven items like naloxone, fentanyl test strips, water, sunscreen, just everything we want people to have to stay safe during Deltopia weekend. We want people to be aware of existing changes to laws or ordinances and enforcement policies and procedures that are coming from law enforcement and local public safety entities. So connecting people to the information itself is really important for us, as well as equipping people with the skills and the equipment and any resources they might need in case they face public safety challenges themselves during Deltopia weekend. There's also going to be some very gracious instruction provided by the Recreation Department instructors. So no certification offerings, but during that Deltopia Preparedness Day event in week 1, there will be instructors here facilitating some first aid instruction, CPR, AED, so that'll be really great to equip people with those skills as well.
The Public Safety Commission will be holding another Deltopia Preparedness Day on April 4th, where students are invited to learn more about this year's Deltopia. UCSB TV will continue to update on any new information on the upcoming event. I'm Jenna McGovern. Thank you for watching.
Tonight on Sports News, we have a double feature. Anthony Gill was in Eugene, Oregon this weekend reporting on Gauchos baseball. But first, let's hear from Ryan Greenberg to learn more about the men's basketball edition of the Blue-Green rivalry.
What's going on, Gauchos? This is Ryan Greenberg live from the Thunderdome, and ladies and gentlemen, it is the Christmas of the UCSB sports calendar, the men's basketball edition of the Blue-Green rivalry. The Gauchos are hosting Cal Poly tonight. Recent history certainly tips in favor of the Gauchos in tonight's matchup. The Gauchos have won 13 straight matchups over the Mustangs, with Cal Poly's most recent victory coming in January of 2018, over 6 years ago. The Gauchos won the previous matchup against Cal Poly this season, picking up a 61-52 victory over the Mustangs Mustangs in San Luis Obispo last month. Cal Poly certainly has had tough sledding this season. The Mustangs are an abysmal 4-24 headed into tonight's matchup, including 0-16 in conference competition. The Mustangs will look to snap their 16-game losing streak and send this crowd home disappointed. The Gauchos, on the other hand, have had a successful season coming into tonight's game, 14-12, including a 7-9 record in the Big West. However, their record falls short of the championship standards the Gauchos have set for themselves. They currently sit at 8th place in the Big West standings, though tonight's win will go a long way towards climbing those standings. The Gauchos can finish as high as 3rd place in the Big West standings with a little luck in other contests, starting with a win in tonight's matchup. Regardless of their place in the standings, the Gauchos can punch their ticket to the Big West Championships in Las Vegas in mid-March with a win tonight. Once there, the Gauchos will have an opportunity to book their spot in this year's edition of March Madness, though they will have to win the conference tournament as they did last year. The remaining 4 games the Gauchos have on their schedule are paramount to building the momentum necessary to win the Big West tournament. Though the Gauchos may not be entering the Big West Championships with the seed that they want, they will be able to use their championship experience and momentum to hopefully go back-to-back in the Big West. If they win the tournament again this year, their regular season finish won't matter, as they're guaranteed a spot in March Madness by hoisting the Big West trophy. Reaching that goal requires a strong finish to the regular season to play the championship basketball they're capable of, and it all starts tonight against Cal Poly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we've got for tonight's pregame show. The crowd is filling up behind us. We're just a mere moments away from tip-off. We will see you at halftime.
What's going on, Gauchos? Welcome back to the studio for our post-game show. I'm Ryan Greenberg alongside Anthony Gill. The Gauchos emerged victorious over Cal Poly by a score of 83-75 to extend their win streak over the rival Mustangs to 14 consecutive wins. Let's take a look at the second half highlights to see how it happened.
Kobe Sanders immediately tied the game at 37 for Cal Poly to begin the second half after converting an and-one opportunity. After the Gauchos scored to take a 39-37 lead, Sanders again was entrusted with the ball for the Mustangs and nailed a deep heat-check 3 to earn Cal Poly a 40-39 lead early in the second half.
From then on, however, the Gauchos wrestled back control for the rest of the game. Cole Anderson drilled a 3-pointer from the corner, sending the Thunderdome's crowd into an eruption of applause as the Gauchos expanded their lead to 46-40. The Gauchos then slowly expanded their lead to 64-51 thanks to strong fundamentals and free throw shooting. Cole Anderson then splashed another corner 3 to extend the Gauchos' lead to 69-58 with 5 minutes left. A.J. Mitchell then converted his last of several and-ones to cushion the Gauchos' lead to 76-54 in the final minutes.
At that point, Cal Poly began intentionally fouling the Gauchos to send them to the free throw line in hopes that the Gauchos would miss. For those less familiar with basketball, intentionally fouling is a common strategy employed by teams losing late in games. The losing team will hope the winning team misses their free throws and they can get the ball back without much time being lost.
Cal Poly's strategy, for a brief moment, looked like it might pay dividends. The Gauchos struggled to shoot efficiently from the free throw line late in the game, allowing the Mustangs to cut the deficit to 6 points in the final seconds with a score of 81-75. It proved to be too little too late for the Mustangs, however, and the Gauchos iced their final 2 free throws to up the score to 83-75 and win the game.
A.J. Mitchell and Johan Traore led the way for the Gauchos with 22 and 19 points respectively.
After the Leap Day contest against the Mustangs, the Gauchos traveled to Cal State Fullerton on Saturday, March 2nd, but unfortunately fell to the Titans by a score of 79-70. The Gauchos will travel to Long Beach on Thursday, March 7th, before returning home to host the UC Riverside Highlanders on Saturday, March 9th in a senior night regular season finale.
The Gauchos will travel to Las Vegas next week for the Big West Championship, looking to punch their ticket to this year's edition of March Madness by winning the Big West.
Moving on to baseball, this past weekend, UCSB TV had the opportunity to head up north to Eugene, Oregon with UCSB Baseball for the 3-game series against the Oregon Ducks. Let's turn to Anthony Gill at PK Park as he has the story on how the Gauchos emerged victorious in the first 2 contests.
What's going on, Gauchos? I'm your sports anchor, Anthony Gill, reporting live from PK Park in Eugene, Oregon, as the Gauchos get set to take on the Oregon Ducks for the final game of the 3-game weekend series. The Gauchos came off a devastating loss to the Pepperdine Waves after being defeated 10-9 despite being in control and holding the lead in the previous 8 innings. Heading into the 9th, the Gauchos were in a comfortable 5-run lead, but an impressive offensive outing by the Waves handed UC Santa Barbara its 4th loss of the season, putting them below 500 at 3-4. Continuing their road trip up north, the Gauchos were certainly eager to bounce back from Tuesday's loss in Malibu and get back on the winning column. Despite the cold and wet climate within the northwestern region, the Gauchos battled through the harsh conditions by taking the series opener 6-1 and going above 500 with yesterday's win in Game 2 with a final score of 7-3. A dominating performance by the junior right-handed pitcher Matt Ager sealed Game 1 for the Gauchos as he held Oregon to just 1 run after returning 8 ducks through just 6 innings pitched. On the offensive side, strong outings by junior third baseman Xander Darby and senior catcher Brandon Durfee assisted the Gauchos in registering 6 runs, 3 of which came from the first inning. Game 2 was a similar result, as a strong performance on the hill by senior left-handed pitcher Mike Gutierrez, along with solid offensive outings by Darby and Durfee, yet again put the Gauchos in position to take all 3 games against Oregon, which would mark their first series sweep of the season. We are expecting light showers throughout today's matchup, but as we've seen in the previous 2 contests, this seems to be no problem for the Gauchos. First pitch for Game 3 will take place at 12:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time as the Gauchos look to add to the win streak and lock up their first series sweep of the season. Thanks for watching. I'm your sports anchor, Anthony Gill. This has been UCSB TV. I'll see you back in the studio.
Well, that's all the sports news and events we have for you. I'm Rebecca Hurtado Fairweather.
And I'm Pricila Flores. Thank you for tuning in to UCSB TV.